Hello and welcome to the Virtual Mac YouTube channel. My name is Neil McLaughlin, aka the Virtual Mac. So in today's video, we're actually going to walk through a complete deployment of a tool called Nerdio Manager for Enterprise. Nerdio is an amazing tool which basically lets you easily manage and create Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365 and Intune environments. So what we're going to do today, we're basically going to go through a complete deployment. We're going to deploy it from scratch. We're going to create an Azure Virtual Desktop workspace. We're going to create a host pool, and then we're going to deploy some session hosts just to see how quick that we can do it in. Okay, so if you're interested to see how long this is going to take us or how easy it really is, then please carry on watching and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos from myself. So what we're actually going to do now is we're actually going to go and deploy Nerdio from the Azure Marketplace. Okay, so the minimum that we need is an Azure subscription, a resource group, and a VNet and subnet. Okay, so I'm in my Azure subscription at the moment, and now we're going to go and deploy Nerdio from the Azure Marketplace. So let's go over to the Marketplace. So in here, just search for Marketplace. Sit easy, not that one. Okay, so go to Marketplace, and then once we're in here, we search for Nerdio. And then we're going to pick Nerdio Manager for Enterprise. Okay, so I select that, and then we just click the Create button. Okay, so now we need to select which resource group we want to deploy the Nerdio resources into, and also the region as well. Okay, so resource group, I've pre-created the resource group already, so I've called it Nerdio YouTube, and then we're going to deploy that into UK South. Okay, so I'm just going to select this one from here. So UK South, let's click Next. Running final validation, and what this is actually doing, this is actually creating a dynamic kind of JSON file, and then it will go and deploy all those resources. So it's just asking me for a phone number, so I'm going to leave that as default, and then I'm going to click on the Create button. Okay, so this is actually now going ahead and deploy all the resources into my subscription. Okay, so you can see here we're deploying a SQL, we're deploying scripted actions, we're deploying a log entities workspace, and so all those resources are going to be deployed automatically for you. Okay, so this process will take about half an hour to 45 minutes depending on how fast Azure is that day. So I'll be back shortly with the finished result. Okay, so that deployment is now complete. So let's go over to the resource group and see what we've got. Right, so you'll see here, these are all the resources that we've got created. So we've got a SQL database, we've got an app service, we've got a key vault, a log entities workspace. So these are all the resources which Nerdio actually deploys. Okay, so what we want to do now, we actually want to go onto the app service, because that's where we're going to manage the environment from, and then give it some basic information about how we want to do the configuration. So I'm going to click on the app service. And then we've got this URL here. Okay, so this URL is actually different for each environment. It's actually an algorithm which is based off the name of the resource group. So if you have like multiple Nerdio deployments inside your tenant, you'll essentially have a different URL to use for each one if they're in a different resource group. Okay, you can actually change this URL as well. So if you want it to be something more specific to your environment, we can change that. But for this one, we're going to just leave it default. So I'm going to click on the default domain, and that should take me to the Nerdio configuration screen. So it's saying it's now deployed. Okay, so we've just done the deployment of resources, so now we need to do the configuration. So that's now complete. So now we're going to go over to the Nerdio configuration screen. So what we've just done now is we've just deployed the core components of Nerdio. So now we actually need to do the configuration, right? So there's two ways you can do this. You can either run it by Cloud Shell, okay, which is the preferred way of doing it, or you can download and run the script inside your own environment using a PowerShell script. So for the sake of this demo, for completeness and simplicity, we're just going to do it via the Azure Cloud Shell. Okay, so I'm going to click Launch Azure Cloud Shell, and that's actually going to create a Cloud Shell if one doesn't already exist in your environment. Okay. So resource group, so I'm going to click PowerShell. I don't have a Cloud Shell, so I'm going to create one. So it's asking me which subscription, so I'm going to select which one I want to use. So I'm going to click on apply. Okay, so that's created me a Cloud Shell. Okay, so now we need to basically take this script Okay, so I'm going to copy the script, wait for the Cloud Shell to complete, paste that, and then execute the script. So now I'm going to paste, okay, and then press enter. So what this is going to do, this is going to do all the configuration. So it's going to configure the key vault, all the secrets, it will create the app registration, all the permissions within Entra ID. It'll do all this for you, right? So it's a very quick and automated process. So as you can see here, it's configuring the API permissions, it's creating the secret. I already had an existing app registration, so that's why it's going so quickly. But this process normally is quite quick as well, between 5 and 10 minutes to run all the resources. So when you're running this, you need to be running this as the global admin, right? So that's really key. Otherwise, it won't have permission to be able to do what it needs to do. Okay, so I normally recommend to customers to basically just temporarily elevate to global admin, and then you can downgrade when you finish the deployment. So what it's actually doing now is actually deployed all the resources and is actually pulling the latest version of Nerdio from our kind of repo, right? So when we're deploying it, we're always deploying the very latest version for you. Okay, so that's now complete. Very easy, very quick. So now we should be able to go back to the previous screen, just refresh that, and then hopefully we'll have a working Nerdio environment. Okay, so now it's basically asking me for the permissions. Okay, so I need to do admin consent. So I'm gonna press consent on behalf of your organization, and this is the bit which requires the global admin permissions. Okay. So basically what we're saying here is we want to allow the Nerdio app, which is this here, so Nerdian-NW-app, to basically read all the information from the Azure environment and also from the Entra ID environment as well. Okay, so I'm click accept. Okay, so this is where we need to do some initial configuration. So feature set, so we can decide whether we want to do Azure Virtual Desktop and Intune and Windows 365. So we are going to, so we do have an Intune configuration, so I want to manage that. You can see here my Entra ID tenant, my Azure subscription, okay, and then we also need to register it. So I'm going to do click to register. So virtual mic, put my name, Neil McLaughlin, and my email address. Okay, my phone number. We don't need to put a phone number in there. Okay, so I'm going to click register. So that's give me some verification. Where's the stairs? There you go. Verify. Okay. Now we need to select a network, right? So this will be a VNet that we want to use to provision the session host under. So I've got an existing VNet that I want to use. So I'm going to call this just the default one. Okay. So I'm going to select that one. Okay, directory. So we're going to use Entra ID. So we're going to pick Entra ID. Okay, so I'm going to create a profile name for that, Entra ID, and then we also want our devices to enroll with Intune. So we're going to click that tick box as well. Okay, file storage, we'll do that later. So we're going to select non-selected, and then we'll skip this for now because we'll do a separate video on how to manage the FX Logic profile storage. We're going to tick the Windows 365 and Intune because we want to have that configuration. So you can see what we can do here as well. We can be really specific about what permissions we want Nerdio to be able to do. So if I only want read-only access, for example, to my Intune environment, I can configure that here as well, right? But for this one, we're going to click full control. So click manage. Okay. I'm going to allow it to do scripts as well. So you can see here we've got a list of all the Graph API permissions that are allowing the Nerdio application to read in the Entra ID environment. Okay, so I'm just going to click OK for that. And then user cost distribution, we're not going to enable that for now. I can go through that separately. So I think we're pretty much done here. So now we basically just need to click on the done button, and then that will apply all the configuration settings, and then hopefully take us straight into the console. Okay, so we need to do admin consent again. So I'm just gonna select that one, sign into your account. Okay, so this is all the Graph API permissions that we're providing admin consent for. So I'm going to click accept. Admin consent granted. Okay, so we go back to the Nerdio console. We tick I have granted admin consent, and then we click on the OK button. Okay, that's it. Installation complete. Really, really simple to do. Obviously, within complicated environments, we always have issues with like Azure policies or not having the correct permissions or something. But as long as you got the correct permissions, as long as there's nothing blocking installation, normally it's okay. Okay, so we've created the initial configuration for Nerdio. So let's now actually go and start creating a host pool, deploy some session hosts, and then log on to those session hosts. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a workspace. So I'm going to click add workspace. So YouTube, so we're going to create a name for this workspace. I'm going to call this one YouTube test. YouTube, too easy, test. Friendly name, testing for YouTube. Okay, description, we're going to leave that blank. So the resource group, I'm just going to use this Nerdio YouTube video, but obviously if you had more resource groups, we can add those into Nerdio and then deploy all your VMs within those. So I'm going to click location, UK South, and then we can also add some tags here as well if you wanted to. All right, so I'm not going to do that. We're just going to keep this really simple for now. So created a workspace. Okay. And then we need to create a host pool, right? So we're going to go in here. We're going to add a dynamic host pool. So name, so YouTube test. So this is going to be host pool for YouTube testing. Okay. So desktop experience, within here we can select whether you want it to be a multi-user desktop pooled, remote app, single user desktop pooled, or single user personal. So for this test we're just going to do a multi-user desktop pooled. Okay, the directory, that'll be the default directory that we created in the initial configuration. Right, so we're going to pick enter ID. FX logics, we're going to turn this off for now because I'm going to do a separate video on how to configure all the FX logics configuration. Okay, so let's let that off. So we'll just get local profiles for now. Okay, so name, I'm going to call this host YouTube test, and then we can have a prefix or a pattern, right? So prefix is going to be anything where we want to have like random characters at the end, right? So this will maybe call it S72H, or it'll create something for random characters. Or if you wanted a pattern, I could just have it like numbers. Yep. So for this one, let's say I want to call it like 01, 02, 03. So I'm going to select that. Network, this is going to be the network that we selected earlier, so I'm just going to keep this as default. Desktop image, we're going to keep this default for now. Again, I'm going to do a separate video how to create an image. VM size, so you notice this is default into V3. A lot of people just leave that for some reason. Obviously we want to default to a V5 if we can, so I'm going to select maybe a D2, let's go for a D4 actually, D4. And then we're going to select a D4 ADS V5. That'll do. So that's 4 cores and 16 gigs of RAM. Okay. OS disk, I'm going to put that as a premium SSD. So I'm doing premium SSD. Okay. And then I'm actually going to assign that VM to myself so we can actually log on to it. Okay. So I'm going to select me. And then again, we can apply tags to all the resources that we're creating if we wanted to. And then we can also create different app groups and stuff. Okay, we can also select it to be a validation environment. So if you want to get the latest version of the AVD agent as soon as it's released, for example, or any test versions, we can create that here as well. Right, so I'm going to click the OK button. Okay, and what this is doing, this is actually creating a host pool, but it's not actually creating any hosts, right? Because we're going to let the Nerdio Autoscaling create the host for us, right? So, and that will be the next screen that we go into. So now this is taking us straight into the auto scaling screen. So the first thing we need to do is to click the big red button and flick that to on, right? So I essentially want to enable the auto scaling. So this is remembered all the settings that we had in the previous screen, and you'll notice here as well it's telling us what the estimated monthly costs are, depending on what I'm putting into this screen here as well. Okay, so we're going to do session limit per host. We're going to set that to maybe 5 hosts, 5. Load balancing, we can select breadth first versus depth first as well. We're going to keep this as breadth first. We're going to configure start VM on connect, just in case we want to do that. So I'm going to select my base host capacity. I'm going to select that to 1. Okay. My minimum active host capacity, I'm going to set that to 0 because this is my dev environment. I don't want to start charging lots of money. So I'm going to select to 0. And what that means is when the host is not being used, it'll be shut down. Obviously, dependent on the auto scaling settings which you put in, but it means that I can switch it off overnight or maybe use start VM on connect to turn that host on as well. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but basically I'm going to use user-driven auto-scaling, and that means when I connect to the host, it will power the host on. When I log off from the host, it will power the host down as well, right? So we have a lot of different auto-scaling mechanisms that we can do, so I'm just going to use user-driven auto-scaling for now, and that basically means that 10 minutes after I've logged off from that host, it's going to be shut down, right? So I'm not going to get charged lots of money while the host is running. So if I wanted to create like 10 hosts, I'll just put 10 hosts in here, right? So just for the sake of testing, we're just going to do 1 host. Okay, so we're going to do scaling at any time. Again, I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail here because I'll cover these settings in a later video. We could do pre-staging if we wanted to. So I can come in here and say, right, Monday to Friday, I maybe have one host that I need to turn on at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so that means that we don't have to wait for the auto scaling for those hosts to be powered on, right? Messaging, auto heal, we're not going to do all that stuff today. So essentially what should happen now is as soon as I click the save and close button, Nerdio is actually going to go start creating that session host for us, okay? And then within like hopefully 15-20 minutes, that host will be ready. Then we can log on to the host and then do a quick test, okay? So I'm going to click save and close button. Okay, configuration saved successfully. We can see here force auto scale process. So pending, in progress, and any second now that's going to kick in, and then we'll just start to see that session host being created. There you go. So you can see here we've got an add host. So that's actually going to go away and create that host for us. It's going to create the machine. It's going to join it into Enter ID, and then it'll register that host within Intune as well. Okay. So that host should be ready to log on to hopefully in about 10-15 minutes. All right, so I'll see you back here then. Okay, so we are now done. So as you can see here, the add host job is completed. So it started at 10:51 a.m. It completed at 11:04 a.m. So pretty much 15 minutes to create the session host. So if you go into details tab, we can see all the steps which are happening here. So it's basically creating a virtual machine. It's doing the join to Enter ID. It's then joining the host pool and then activating the session host. Okay, so let's now just test this and just make sure all this stuff is working. So I'm going to open up my remote desktop client. Okay, and then I should see all my host pools. So the new one should pop up. There you go. So you can see testing for YouTube. So this is the workspace that we created earlier, and you can see the host pool here as well. Okay, so if I just click that, YouTube test, initiate the no resources. Okay, so maybe that host is not online yet, so real world troubleshooting here. So let's have a quick look and see what's going on here. It's in drain mode. Okay, cool. So we need to take it out of drain mode. So activate. Yeah. Okay, so now if we try that again. Okay, it's asking me for my password. Okay, and there you go. So that's how easy it is to get up and running with an AVD session host and deployment using Nerdio. So that's probably taken me around 10 minutes of actual work to do, and I've literally gone from having nothing to a Nerdio deployment to a session host and a host pool that I can log on to with very, very, very little effort. Okay, so super easy. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I just wanted to record this experience just to show you how quick and easy it is to deploy AVD session hosts and host pools using Nerdio. So in subsequent videos I'm going to cover specifics like how we configure the FX object profiles, how we do the image management, that kind of stuff. Okay, so see you soon, and thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you, goodbye.